Thanks for staying with us, everyone. Key players in Nigeria's gas subsector have hailed Dangote petroleum refinery for investing over 720 billion naira to implement deployment of 4,000 compressed natural gas-powered trucks for the nationwide distribution of petroleum products. Experts say this bold step will see the privately owned refinery absorb over 1.07 trillion naira annually in petrol distribution costs. Now, the initiative will significantly benefit over 42 million micro, small and medium enterprises by reducing energy costs and enhancing profitability. Particularly, the presidency says the initiative is a pivotal moment in the federal government's push to mainstream gas-powered transportation. Now, the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria also commended the development, calling it a timely resolution to long-standing challenges in the downstream sector for independent marketers by delivering a more affordable fuel directly to filling stations.
Joining us at Newsnight to analyze the economic implications of the free nationwide distribution of refined petroleum products by Dangote Petroleum Refinery and what it means for ordinary Nigerians is Professor Ken Ife, an economist. Thank you so much for joining us on the news tonight.
So pleased to be here.
Great to see you. I mean, is there any other name to call this other than a bailout, a subsidy of some sort? But really, I think the question is, how much difference can it really make for the average Nigerians battling high transport costs and inflation?
I call it a lifeline because many rural petrol stations closed down long ago. They just can't get fuel. Then you now have over half of these petrol stations actually screaming that they're going down. Not because it's just because they've not embraced the new dispensation. And more importantly, actually, hospitals are in problem because they can't get fuel. Then aviation terminals or the airports, these are mission critical services. And then you have the network providers. How many times has your network cut off? Then the banks with all their ATMs and services and all of these people are mission critical. And they just can't get enough gas, fuel, and they don't get it at the right time, and then they have prices. So you expect those rises in those costs. But the thing is this, if you just take, when we discussed this before, we didn't have the benefit of the size of the economy. Now we know the size of the economy. That 1.7 trillion is all out there. Divided by 230 million Nigerians, you could see 7,400 naira per person. Divide it with 42 million MSMEs, you will see 40,000 naira per MSME, which are 42 million of them. So if wherever you look, and I think we need to focus on the main beneficiaries, which are the population, and then the MSMEs. And what does it mean to them? These are category of industries where 70% at least of their input cost is connected to this energy cost. It's either they are running generator 70% of the time, or they are using a fuel for transportation. And you saw, in fact, before you launch a national program, the question we always ask is, where is your pilot? In December last year, he piloted. And then when he piloted, we saw for the first time in 10 years, no queues in the petrol station, price was maintained, and it cost him over 10 billion just to run that pilot to prove that you can get this uniform price across the country. And then he took the cost. You see, we need to congratulate the president, because what the president has actually done is to transfer subsidy from the public sector to the private sector. Now, and this is what you should do if you encourage PPP and encourage private sector to come out and bail out. It doesn't all have to be government bring money. Government keeps borrowing. And we'll complain about the impact of borrowing. But where you have a private sector that can come in and they stabilize the price, achieve more alignment, remove the misalignments, and then also achieve what we call resilience in the supply chain, then it bodes well. Now, all of those who are closing will come back to life. More jobs are going to come, and the benefit is just unquantifiable in the real sense. But we just have some figures to work with.
Right. Very interesting. And I'm looking at this statement, from the Dangote refinery, saying it aims to meet Nigeria's daily consumption of 65 million litres of refined petroleum products. This includes 45 million litres of PMS, 15 million litres of diesel, and 5 million litres of aviation fuel. Before now, there's always been this argument about the correct figures in terms of Nigeria's consumption of petrol, especially. Especially. With this move now, with this strategy, is it that Dangote has been able to clearly say that this is the amount of petrol consumed by Nigerians?
Yeah, he can actually prove it.
And great. How sustainable is this? I mean, because this is a private...
no, you know what has happened in the past?
Initiative.
All these subsidy crisis and all the hula baloo around was because we couldn't be sure how much we are consuming. So today they will claim 60 million, they will claim 75 million, they give, and we are paying for corruption. So that was proven, and then the bigger animal, elephant, was the NNPC now taking entire monopoly of purchase of, and things even got worse because all they ended up doing was to take away about $3 billion to securitize our crude and gas, and then use it to repair the refineries. And we have a refinery that's not producing PMS. It's not producing naphtha. So we just came out from two hydra-headed monsters. One, the gang up of these people, and then the second one was the NNPC. Now we are given an opportunity to clean the house. And let me tell you what more. When we had border closures, that was the first time we got a wind of what could be going on, because suddenly fuel price dropped, the fuel consumption dropped by 30%. And then all the countries on the western coast, up to Senegal, all of them were complaining. Their prices went up because they were being fed by our subsidy. Now Dangote can actually prove it. Not just because of what goes out from his station, because he's not the only one supplying, but he can actually put trackers, satellite trackers on his tanks, and then geo-fencing, so that if they go near the border, alarm will trigger on their dashboard. If it's going from Lagos to Kano, and he moves outside the road, it will trigger. So he can prove it. And the thing is this, the medium and downstream regulator, there are 3 assignments that they should have done. The first thing is to establish the correct fuel we are consuming in the country. They haven't done it.
Metering.
I'm telling you. The second job that they should do is to get laboratory, an accredited laboratory that will make sure that we know what is being brought into this country. They haven't. Neither has NNPC all these years. So it's only Dangote that actually has an internationally accredited laboratory. And when they brought their 200 million metric liters of fuel, come on, bring it, let's test. They won't test.
Okay.
So you are relying on the mans dumping this thing to you to give you their own certificate.
Is this sustainable?
But of course it's not. Because it's not even legal. Because under the PIA...
I'm asking about this 1.7 trillion cost to consumers that Dangote is absorbing. Yes, as a private refinery. Is it something that is sustainable in the long run? Right.
He's done his homework.
Yeah.
As long as we continue to have naira to crude policy, then, and don't forget that his capacity is 650,000 barrels a day.
Yeah.
Right.
He's only getting 70,000 barrels. He doesn't even get up to 100,000 barrels. But he can't stand the hemorrhage on our communities and the people and business, damage to the businesses. So he said, okay, let's clear this out and have an alignment and the resilient supply chain, and then that will bring overall it is going to reduce inflation significantly, because we saw inflation reduce in December, the first time, because normally food prices hit the peak in December, but it turned down. And that's partly because of what happened.
Professor Kenny Fate said that nothing is free, even in Freetown. But we are seeing Dangote prove that wrong with policies such as this. Yeah. But there are those who have raised concerns. I wonder if you share with that concern, or if it is even legitimate. They say this could distort the market, because even though it's done in good faith and good intentions, what happens when the free supply ends?
No, it's not actually. First of all, he's not dominating the market, because if anybody dominates the market, it's NNPC that is playing at upstream, midstream, and downstream. And because
even at their current capacity?
No, it hasn't even got capacity because it's not producing PMS.
Exactly.
So why is it still on the downstream selling petrol? You should sell all that off and then even sell the refinery, because it's not producing. The second thing is that Dangote sits at the midstream, not even playing at the upstream. And has he taken over thousands of stations on the downstream? It's not. It's just he's entitled to move his product. In fact, if we had pipelines working, those 22 pipelines, he probably would have plugged into the pipeline, because that would have been the most efficient way of delivering.
Even cheaper.
But that would have been cheaper and most efficient, but the pipelines are not working. Two, if the trains were working, that would have been a second choice, but they're not working. But meanwhile, we need to stabilize this market, because who is suffering? It's 30 million people with 42 million businesses.
Thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight. Ken Ife, economist, joining us on Newsnight. Thank you so much.